All right, guys, what's up? All right, so I posted my videos on how to master your emotions, and I kind of knew that this was going to happen, which is why I know a lot of you have been saying, hey, John, come on, man, let's get into the good stuff, manifesting our reality and stuff. And I was really wanting to make sure, and again, this is why I kind of put it off, that you guys had a proper foundation before going into it. In other words, you had enough base knowledge to where you can follow what it is that I'm trying to say or what it is that I'm trying to do. So, when I posted the video, I expected this. I knew this was going to happen, and that's okay. So, we're getting a lot of questions, and I said to myself, okay, let's just go ahead and do a live stream and give you guys an opportunity to get a little bit more of a one-on-one Q&A on it. So we're kind of killing time right now. It takes about 2 or 3 minutes for people to start showing up. That is, if anybody shows up. But while we're waiting, I kind of want to. Now I'm going to wait and see if Colin shows up first. If you look in description, you will see a link to the video I posted. If you guys get a chance, Christopher Collins was asking some good questions, and I ended up going on a little bit longer than what I had expected. Generally, I like to kind of segment things out, but there's a good explanation on that transference of consciousness that I talk about, that moving from one awareness or moving from one emotion to another, that you all might find interesting. Okay, we got two people here. Guys, I'm doing Q&A on mastering your emotions. Do you guys have any questions on it? I've actually just been rambling until people showed up. And if this is working properly, which is why I don't have a moving screen, we should have maybe like a 5-second delay. To let you all know, I turned the spam filter off so you can do longer questions, should you need to do so. But again, my Q&As, I do those really just to bullshit, just to talk with you guys. I don't do it to lecture. That's why I make the videos. So go grab a cup of coffee, relax. It's very interactive, which means that there's a lot of pauses. All right, so who do we got in here? We got two people. Oh, let me switch this to newest. Oh, I'm going to go to full live chat. Hey, Kelly, too. Well, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you found it. Hey, Christopher. Did you read what I put on your questions? By the way, Kelly, I'm glad you're here. Feel free to ask questions. Hiya, Don. Glad you showed up, too. Again, feel free to ask questions, people. That's why I'm here. Take advantage of me while you can. But I suppose I should ask right off if Colin's had a chance to go through and read my reply. Okay, is that making sense to you, or do you have questions on it? Yeah, I've been doing all right, Don. Thank you. How you been doing? Don's asking, "Hey, man," or he's asking, "Hey, man, how you doing?" Well, skipping out with the man part. But really, everything that I got in that video on your emotions, it really does work. You have to keep in mind, one of the laws of nature is wherever the focus goes, your awareness goes. So you have to think of your awareness as like a power center. Okay, think of it as like a battery. an aspect or an emotion is not going to have power over you until it's being powered. And it requires your awareness to be powered or empowered, whatever you want to call it, however you want to term it. But think of it as its energy source. So if I do not focus on it, and this is a good practice, especially if you have an emotion that overpowers you. You have to weaken that emotion. And to weaken that emotion means you don't go into it. Every time you go into an emotion, you have energized it. You have used your awareness to empower it or to give it more power. Now, it's kind of like starving. If I don't go into an emotion, and it may take years, it all depends on how much energy that particular emotion has over you or how much power you put into that emotion. It may take days, it probably won't take days. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to mislead you. It's definitely going to be in the weeks and month category, okay? Definitely weeks and month. It'll start to starve. And the more it starves, the weaker it gets and the easier it is for it to handle. Now, me personally, for instance, I'm far enough along the path that the only one that I'll miss, that I'll screw up and I'll go into without realizing it is righteous anger. Yeah, that one's big. And that's one that I'm working on. But other than that, regular anger, waiting in line, I don't get impatient. Impatience is another emotion that I don't like, which means that I just don't focus on it. If I don't focus on it, I don't experience it. As a matter of fact, it's now so weak, a lot of my emotions are now so weak that they don't even have enough energy to start to rise on me. Is this making sense to you guys? My eyesight's really off today. Colin says, it makes sense. It will take some effort to get it working. Yeah, guys, it's all practice. It's all practice. It was kind of like I was explaining to Collins. If you're into the magical practices, again, I'm not teaching any particular, system of the path. I'm not teaching any particular system. I'm just wanting to give you guys understanding of why it works and how it works. And you can use whatever system that you want. It doesn't matter, as long as you understand the principles behind it. Okay? So I was kind of explaining using magical terminologies. What you're actually doing is you're invoking an emotion. Okay, that's a magical terminology. So you are saying, okay, I'm in anger. I'm using anger as a for instance, and I want out of it. Well, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to invoke compassion to move anger out of the way. Now, the emotion that I used to like to use myself was bliss. That was my go-to emotion when I was, first, trying to make sure that, um, my negative emotions, that they didn't have power over me, and I was trying to starve them by making sure I didn't go into them for any reason whatsoever. I mean, any reason. I didn't want to go into them. So the minute I noticed those emotions start to rise in me, what I would do is I would switch immediately and focus on bliss. I liked bliss. What is bliss, you ask? That is the emotion you have when you get what you want. You guys know it. Practice it. It's an easy one to bring up, and it's also a handy one to have. This way, if you want to know the truth, you can be happy anytime that you want or anytime that you decide. But that's the one that I used to like, was bliss. Let's see. Collins asked, could it help to learn how to experience an emotion without using a trigger by beginning with using a trigger? Oh, yeah, most definitely. That's kind of why in that explanation that I was giving you in your question, I went into going ahead and using an object. So what I was explaining to Collins was, if you guys want, and in fact, it'll make it easier for you, think of it as like training wheels. You can take an object, and again, what we're getting into now, and this is why, again, I was being hesitant on doing it, is changing your reality by changing how you view the world. Because let's face facts. Reality is how you perceive it. So you can change reality by changing your perception. And one of the biggest ways to change your perception is to change your emotions. Okay? When you're angry, you're going to see everything as hostile. Well, that's not a perception that I really want to have, is it? When I'm impatient, almost anybody's going to trigger me into anger, right? Well, that's not really a reality that I want to have either. So, this is the beginning. This is the start of learning how to make a reality around you. This is why the ancient magicians, and Buddhists do it also, okay? Almost every organized religion, except for Christianity, well, even Christianity, especially in the Catholicism, where they get into saints, etc., and, they have their medallions, but anyways. In the Western magical tradition, if you wanted to have a magical object, what you do is you imbue that object with the properties that you want. Okay? Now, so you're probably saying to yourself, all right, how do I do that? Well, I use the for instance of a ring. Let's say I want to make a ring a magical object or a trigger. You could call it a trigger if you want to use modern psychology. I'm going to focus on that ring, and when I look at that ring, I'm going to say to myself, this is my ring of bliss. And then I'm going to I'm going to remember times when I felt at bliss, times when I got what I want. Perhaps think back. A good one to use is, let's say you're in love with a girl or a guy, and the first time they say, I love you, there's a feeling of bliss then, okay? I hate to use the word feeling of love because it's not really a feeling of love. What you're really feeling is bliss. You got what you wanted, okay? And I'm going to get into wants and how it keeps us from manifesting what we want in the future. That'll be a future video. Guys, I'm getting there. Think of it this way. I'm going to put out a lot of videos. So just, be patient. I actually got a method to my madness here. So I'm going to, now, I don't have to do anything mentally. I don't have to you are now the ring of bliss. Wah, wah. Wave my hand over it 3 or 4 times, okay? You don't have to do that. All you have to do is practice looking at the ring and shifting to bliss. At first, you're not going to feel anything at all. You're going to have to remember that, find that emotion. Everybody's got one, okay? You're going to have to find your trigger emotion, okay? You're going to have to. And you're going to have to get good at shifting to that whenever you want to. And generally, the best way to do that is to relive it. Our imagination is just as powerful when it comes to our emotions as the physical world, as our experiences. And if you don't believe me, then you're on the wrong channel, guys. Come on. You guys got to know this. You have to have seen it happen in your life. You may need to meditate about it to be able to see it, but you're going to see that I'm correct. If you imagine something can have just as much power, reliving something can have just as much power as actually experiencing it. And you'll get quicker and quicker at bringing it up. You really will. Faster than what you think. That doesn't take a lot of time to do. And I'm just going to experience the emotion. And then I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to let the emotion fade. How do I let it fade? I take my focus off of it. Right? I stop thinking about that experience or that imagination or that imagining that brought up that emotion. And then what I'm going to do is I'll wait a little while, make sure it's all gone, and try to do this fairly quickly, okay? Don't let too much time go aside. Right about when you feel that bliss or whatever emotion you choose, guys, it doesn't matter. You can have an anger ring if you want. You can have, any ring that you want or any item that you want. You can put any emotion into it. But just don't wait too long after you bring it up because you're going to want to bring it up a little faster. So I'm going to pick up that ring again, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to say, this is my ring of bliss. And then I'm going to bring up that emotion. You'll see that it comes up quicker, okay? It's, and I'm going to tell you why. You just empowered it, haven't you? You put your focus into it. It's now more powerful, okay? Once I feel that emotion clearly and strongly, I'm going to set that ring aside, and then I'm going to shift my focus to something else. Once I feel that bliss start to fade off, I'm going to do it again. If you practice that for 1 week straight, 3 times a day, at least 3 times a day, okay? Do it like 4 or 5 times, 3 times a day. Within 7 days, you will have empowered a ring of bliss. And you won't even have to physically look at it. I mean, you can put it on your hand if you want. It won't make any difference until you invoke it, okay? You're going to be invoking that emotion. It'll become so strong that, let's say if you forgot your ring and you go to work, all you have to do is imagine that ring and bliss will come up. So yes, am I answering your question about using a trigger? Max Bryan says, hey everybody. Hey Max, what's up, man? Don, I have found most of my anger is sprouted from disappointment. Okay, then what does that mean, Don? What that means is, just like in the video, okay, you got to develop the watcher. Guys, that watcher that I talked about is really important, okay? It's really important. It's hard to move along the path without the watcher. Even saints, while they may not know what they were doing, but if they're following the Gospels, let's use organized religion. If they're following the Gospels, they had to, whether they knew it or not, create the watcher. How else are you going to know if you're judging others and stop doing it? How else are you going to know? The only way to know is to develop the watcher, and they were doing that. They just may not know that that's what they were doing. They were creating a new personality aspect. So what you need to do, and you'll find, guys, it's really, I mean, this is stuff that, it's easy to verify, yourself, okay? When you start to feel disappointment, and you're going to miss it, for at least 5 or 6 times until you train your mind what you want it to do, you will notice that it starts to, you will start to feel it. It'll be like an itch, okay, inside. Or some of you may be outside. It doesn't matter, okay? It'll start as an itch. It'll almost be like a little flash, wanting your notice. It's something that wants you to notice it. You'll notice this, okay? And there'll be a small feeling to it to where you know what emotion it is, subconsciously. But you switch to it so quick, the minute it flashes, excuse me, the minute it flashes, wanting your attention, without training, we're going to focus on it immediately and we're going to be drawn right into it. So we're now going to be expressing that emotion without choosing to do so. The key is that point when it flashes, when it's wanting your attention. And you'll see it, guys, really. If you practice this, I swear, you're not wasting your time. You will see that I'm correct. It flashes first, and then you go into the emotion, and then hopefully if you're developing the watcher, it probably won't be until after you're in the motion you're going to go, oh wait, I didn't watch. Well, it's soon enough now to where you can probably remember, go back to when right before you experience that emotion. And you'll see it's almost like a flash grabbing your attention. And then you focused on that flash, and then you started to experience it. I call it you moved into that consciousness or into that emotion. So it's at that point where it flashes is where you have command. Okay? You can now say, oh no, I don't want to go into disappointment because I know disappointment's going to lead to anger, which is going to lead to whatever. You know what? I'm going to go into bliss. Because until you can weaken that energy, until you can weaken that emotion by not feeding it, you got to starve it. Again, I'm going back to what I'm saying, okay? I hate to repeat myself, but I have to. You have to starve it. So go into bliss or go into another emotion that already has a lot of strength. Okay, so let's say you don't go into bliss a lot. Let's say, it's almost like a foreign concept to you. There has got to be an emotion that you have that is easy for you to go into, that you experience a lot, which is non-destructive. I don't know, it could be love, it could be compassion, it could, you have to pick the one that's the strongest. Because keep in mind, when I'm in one emotion, I cannot experience the aspects of another emotion. For instance, if I'm in compassion, or if I'm in anger, especially if I'm in anger, I can't experience compassion. I can't. It's impossible. I have to now move into compassion to be compassionate towards somebody. So you move it into another emotion and then keep it there. That keeps your awareness from moving into that negative emotion. Phew, okay. I need to say that 10 times real quick. Guys, see why I was holding off on wanting to talk about this? Y'all are going to make me work now. It was easy all the way up to now. It's just giving you all the basics. Let's see. Hey, everybody. I have found. Okay, I hope that helps answer your question, Don. Let me know if you got more questions on that. We'll go back to it. Christopher, while watching Tyrant Police, my anger, if not rage, flares up intensely, violently. Is there something to help immediately diminish sudden rage? Douse the flames to a degree. Rage clouds judgment. All right, you've just answered your question. All right. You know, and I'm going to recommend this for everybody. If you experience road rage, get that watcher ready. Because you know, if you go home every day and you experience road rage at least 3 or 4 times, get ready because you know that emotion is going to come up. And watch what I'm trying to tell you about it flaring up, okay? All right. And prepare to have that, shall we say, healing emotion or medicine, okay? For you, Christopher, what I would do is I would get ready to watch a police video, knowing that I'm probably going to go into rage. This allows me to practice moving out of that or not going into that emotion. So let's say that I'm at the point to where I need to practice switching my emotion because I just can't catch that moment. And it does. It takes time to catch that moment, to be able to not go into it immediately. But you want to get out of it as quickly as possible. The longer you're in it, the more you empower it. So plan ahead of time. Prepare. Watch the video. Watch for that emotion to come up. Notice that it's coming up. You want to just notice. And then move your awareness to something else. If you have to, turn off the video. In fact, I would recommend it. Turn off the video, pull out your ring. I am in bliss. I am in bliss. Again, you don't have to do that. You just have to look at your item, look at your trigger, and just allow that feeling to come up, okay? Relive, if you have to, that feeling. And you'll notice it's easier and easier to do. But it's a practice, people. It's a practice. You got to look at where you're weak, and you've got to start working with that. Again, the quicker you get out of an emotion, the less you empower it. Oh, another thing that works really well, too, is imagining, okay? Sorry, guys. It's like been 25 years since I worked on this aspect. So I forget a lot, okay? So as I talk, I'll remember stuff. I remember what I used to do, and this really helped a lot, was let's say I lost myself to an emotion, okay? I didn't choose to go into it. After I come out of it, I'll go sit someplace, and I'll now reimagine what it is that I wanted to have happen. See what I mean? I'll now relive it, but this time I'm going to notice the emotion coming up, and I'm going to try to focus on something else in my imagination. I'm training my mind, okay? I'm training my watcher. If I still can't see that point yet, okay, which, again, guys, it takes time and practice to see it. If I still can't see that point of an emotion wanting my attention, then I'm going to stop and I'm going to practice now in my imagination, stopping that emotion and moving into another emotion. It works. It really, really works. In fact, that's how I used to do it. I'm sorry, guys. Again, remember, I'm old, man. I've been on the spiritual path close to 40 years now. So, some of the stuff that I'm talking with you guys about, it was a long time ago, And anyways, I'm doing the best I can, though. Okay, while watching, Christopher also asks, yes, you're describing a magical talisman, a symbol, written, an object, a tattoo, could be imbued. My friend imbued a talisman with the entire lesser banishing ritual. She activated it, and it's done. Yeah, same thing. It just takes practice. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Talisman, magical item. Again, I try not to use too directive a terminology because I don't want you guys to put labels on it. I don't know what background that you all are coming from. So if I say talisman, there could be people out there that go, oh, wait, talismans are evil. Hold it. That might be the label that they have on it. If I say a magical item, I know it's going to turn off some people. That's why I tried to qualify it ahead of time. But you get the idea. Whatever connects with you. If the idea of talisman connects with you, great. But really, all you're doing, and this is, again, the essence of creating a talisman or creating a magical item or creating a trigger. I'm going to use psychology. Creating a trigger. You can create your own triggers, people. Is experiencing what it is that you want and then practicing it within your imagination. Okay? And then focusing on that object while experiencing an emotion and telling yourself that this emotion, belongs to this object. Again, I kind of covered that about 5 or 10 times, but yeah, it works. Jonathan says, realizing everything you believed was false is emotionally traumatizing. Hell yeah, it is. I'll tell you the truth, guys. The first 2 points along the path, the attachment to the physical and the attachment to excitements and pleasures, okay? Those are the 2 most painful ones that you're going to go through. They are, again, I hate to... Oh, hey, thanks, John. Thanks, Jonathan. Those are the 2 most painful that you go through. And that's because, and I was thinking about this earlier, those of us that want to go beyond where we are now, it's kind of funny, okay? And this is why it's painful. Those of us that we want to transform, we want to ascend, we want to get into heaven, we want to, whatever you want to term it. You want to move out of the realm of darkness and ignorance into the realm of light, okay? You want to purify. You want to get involved in, you want to do alchemy to be able to move out the negatives and be able to be a positive, human being. What you're really saying is that you want to transform yourself. But it's so funny because neophytes and beginners on the path, and I was guilty of this myself, so I don't mean to get on you guys about it, and I'm not, all right? It's normal. We want to transform ourselves into the magician or create the philosopher's stone or however, again, become the Christ consciousness. But we want to do it our way. We want to do it the way we want to do it. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to pick out what I want to still be me. I'm going to let you guys know. And I want you to think about this, okay? Go back to when you were 10 years old, if you can remember back that far. Your sense of self is exactly that sense of self that you feel now. That awareness, the sense of self. It hasn't changed over the years. And I know this, guys, I'm 60, okay? So I can tell you this from experience. I can remember when I was 20. And yes, I was a stupid 20-year-old, just like any 20-year-old. But my sense of self has not changed to my sense of self now, that which is looking out through these eyes, although how I react and what my personality has changed. You guys have to think of it this way. Don't be afraid of transforming, okay? Don't be afraid, or don't be traumatized by now being the oddball in the group, because you are transforming who you are, but your sense of self will remain exactly the same. That won't change. Am I making sense, guys? Don says, John, you don't feel it necessary to look for the cause of the emotion. No, I mean, it's up to you if you want to. But again, I'm telling you, if you don't go into the emotion, and if you can keep from going into the emotion, it's gonna become weaker and weaker. It won't have any power over you. You're going to be able to center more and your watcher is going to become more powerful. It's almost like, okay, your watcher eventually is going to replace your ego. That's what you're really working towards, okay? Now, we're getting way ahead of ourselves, all right? But again, I'm just kind of letting you guys know what's down the road. You know, should you go ahead and pursue this and really want to stay with self-mastery and learn how to become centered and be able to master yourself, which means that I can now master my environment around me. You're going to find that the watcher you're developing, you eventually want to have it replace your ego. Okay? Is that making more sense? So every time that you watch your emotions or you watch your internal chatter or you watch what you're thinking, you are empowering your watcher, which is what you want to do. So as your emotions, your negative emotions get weaker and weaker because you're not going into them, you're not empowering them. The only time they can be empowered is if in your imagination or in physical reality you enter it. You are then empowering it. I know I'm repeating myself, but I have to, okay? By not going into it, you're starving it. And if you stay within the watcher, you're empowering the watcher. You're giving it more strength. That's why it's so hard to use the watcher at the very beginning. Think of it as like a newborn baby. You're just creating it. It's the first personality aspect that you've created yourself on purpose for a reason. And again, my next video is probably going to be on personality aspects. You know, if you notice, I'm kind of moving outwards a little bit. I started with the consciousness of sensations, and now I moved on to emotions. Then we're going to move on to personality traits and how to master your own personality. But we're going to get to that. Just worry about the two that I'm talking about now, all right? That watcher will then be able to usurp, in other words, take the power away from what? Your ego. Most all your negative emotions come from the ego. And all of you psychologists and New Agers are going, but wait, what about a healthy ego? There's no such thing as a healthy ego. It doesn't exist. I'm sorry, it doesn't. And bring a psychologist on. I'll do a live stream with them, and I'll argue with them, and I'll win. I'll win. See, I just lost one person when I said there's no such thing as a healthy ego. Guys, it's not my job to make you all happy. My job is to try to kind of tell you guys how it is. And again, you guys can confirm all this for yourself, man. I give you guys the tools. John, you don't feel it necessary. Okay, Jonathan's following what I'm saying. Yeah, again, it's traumatic whenever our belief structure. You probably weren't here when I talked about this. Nothing changes in this world without an upheaval. So think about it this way. When you're being traumatized, it means that you had an epiphany or you had an insight so powerful that it changed your worldview. That's why you feel traumatized. But also, I want you to remember, whenever that thought or that epiphany happened, at that moment, before you felt traumatized, you felt empowered. And you probably felt a little bit of fear. Almost always you're going to feel both of those emotions, okay? Focus on that empowerment. The fear and the trauma comes later when you're having to go through and say, oh man, I believe that this was right, and now I know it's wrong. Wait a minute, if that's wrong, then that means that was wrong. Wait a minute, everybody's thinking this way, but I know it's wrong. Are you sure that I'm not wrong? That's the traumatizing part. Your ego moving away from the herd, moving off on its own. For you becoming a master of yourself, which most people aren't. That is traumatizing. It's scary. Gilman, I think the cause of the emotions are the most important thing. Then focus on that. Again, as long as looking, okay, Gilman, you can look at the cause of the emotion, but can you change that cause? No, you can't. Because whatever's causing that emotion is going to happen all the time. What you're doing is you're allowing yourself to get lost in the trees, because you'll say, oh, wait a minute, this causes that emotion. Wait a minute, that causes that emotion. Wait a minute, oh, this one here does too. That one does too. Wait, that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Next thing you know, you're trying to deal with 50 different things that are causing an emotion. You can't do it. It won't happen. What you want to do is you want to cut it off at its root. Or if we're looking at it as leaves, okay, on a tree, I'm going to cut off that limb. I'm going to starve it to where it doesn't come up anymore, even if I come across that cause of the emotion. Is that making more sense? Because if I weaken that emotion enough, I can come across that trigger, that cause, and it won't bring up the emotion anymore because it's too weak. But again, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. I mean, you can go ahead and keep trying that, but just remember what I said when you find that it doesn't work, okay? Try what I'm saying. Try to change your... Listen, guys, there's not much in the world that we can change. We can only change our reaction and our perception of it. That's really all that we can change. And when we do that, we now start to change the world around us. What do we got here? Jonathan says, not all who wander are lost. Token. You're right. Love Token. Jonathan says, I was forced to reject religious dogma because it doomed those I love. I did a video on religion, and it is actually a valid path. It's just not one that I really want to follow. I mean, again, religion is great as long as you just follow the Gospels, okay? The Gnostic form. Just ignore everything else in the Bible. Just follow the Gospels of Christ, okay? If you can do that, you don't need the rest of the Bible. You will make it into heaven. You will ascend. You will have Christ consciousness. You will create the watcher. You will do all of the stuff that I'm talking about without realizing you're doing it. Because, okay, if I'm not judging something, which is, the big thing about Christianity, non-judgment, all right? And that was a big thing that Christ talked about. If I'm not judging something, then there is no longer a trigger to go into, let's say, anger or envy. Correct? You see what I mean? But to be able to do non-judgment, I'm going to have to watch my emotions and watch my thoughts, right? And I'm going to have to be able to stop that non-judgment when I notice that it's starting to appear. That's why I'm saying it's easier to cut off the branch than it is to try to cut out every leaf. Unless, of course, you got like a really big ass, chainsaw, and you can just really hack away up to those leaves. It's easier to just cut the branch. Let's see. I was forced to reject religious dogma. Okay. The transformer helped me lose ego. Dan says, the transformation. Are you talking about transforming from one emotion to another, Dan? Christopher says, what if I want to feel an emotion, but I can't seem to trigger it? Can unfamiliar emotions be elicited? Well, if you can imagine it, yeah. I mean, it all depends on your ability to imagine. Well, yeah, I mean, the more you can get rid of the ego, then yes, the easier it is. Like I said, it's not an easy process, guys. The first 2 points are not easy. But yeah, I will say, when you get to the other side of the veil, when you move out of the realm of ignorance, or the realm of darkness is what they like to call it, or the dimension, and you cross the veil into the light, it gets easier and easier, which they call ascending, okay? People call ascending. It gets easier and easier to control your ego. Your ego gets weaker and weaker. It's just a natural process. Gilman says, you can change your thought processes to prevent that emotion, though, John. If that works, again, Keep in mind, guys, these are just paradigms that I'm giving you that I picked up over the years. If this paradigm works for you and that process works, then perfect. But remember, it's just a paradigm. Paradigms are meant to be discarded once you grow out of it. So yeah, if it works for you, great. You're probably doing the exact same thing. You're doing the exact same thing, just calling it a different way. No, 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 no. The cause is your reaction to the root. You're still thinking internally, Gilman, that things are making you feel a certain way. Okay, you guys, part of self mastery is to own my reaction. Okay? It's really a process of owning that reaction and say, okay, I'm reacting this way to this. If I go to the store, no matter how much I think about it, if there's a long line on that store and I get impatient and I go into lion rage, I like to call it that, because don't even think about taking cuts in front of me. Because I'll go off. Oh, I'll go off big time because I just hate standing in line. You can't change that. You know, if that's what the lines are like, okay? If that's your reaction to a line, you can only change the reaction that you have to external stimuli. Some ignorant moron earlier was attacking me over me being gay, saying, I am a sinner. He thought that you choose your sexual orientation. I am so sick of ignorance like that. Those are fake Christians. Yeah, dude, that's what your higher self decided to experience. You know, let's face facts, okay? In this world, being gay is a unique experience. Again, I don't know why, your spirit chose that, but it is a different experience. But remember, most Christians, also, just remember, Gilman, most Christians can talk the talk really well. They just can't walk the walk. And I can understand why. I mean, doing the path is very painful. I mean, it is. There's no way around it. It is. It's easy. The path is easy. It's just very difficult to do. Dude, go through my video. Gilman says, to be honest, I'm good at all rage. I need to learn anger management, John. Help. Go through that video and listen to what I'm telling you, guy. Quit looking for external triggers and look for the emotion coming up within you and learn how to master it. Learn how to choose whether or not to accept that emotion. Like, okay, so let's say I'm in a situation and anger starts to manifest, okay, and it's starting to come up and I notice it. The difference between me and another person is this. I'm going to look at the situation and decide if it's appropriate to be angry. Maybe it is. Okay, there's who knows? I don't know. It depends on the situation. It may be appropriate to be angry. The difference between me and someone else, though, that gets angry is I'll allow that anger to go through me. And then once the situation is done, I'll immediately turn off that anger. I can immediately turn it off. That's the difference. That's part of self-mastery. It doesn't mean not having emotions. It just means being master over your emotions. And guys, it really works. I mean, if you want to try it the way that you're trying, go ahead. But I'm telling you the way that, masters have been doing it for thousands of years. This is the way that they're doing it. These are things that they noticed. And they have discovered works for them. It's just too easy to get lost in the tree. Just cut it off at the base. Just cut off the emotion completely. Because you'll always find a new trigger for anger. Everybody can always find a new trigger. I watched it, but I am always irritable. Gilman says, I did recently start ignoring people when I feel like that, so I don't get angry at them. That is a start. Oh, yeah, perfect. There you go. Yeah. Okay, what are you doing? All right, think about this. When you're ignoring the people, what you're doing is you're not allowing your awareness to go into that anger. It's like ignoring the anger. Okay, same concept. Okay, it's the exact same concept. In fact, I like that better. When you start to feel a negative emotion come up, notice that it's there. Notice. There's a difference between noticing and focusing. Notice that it's there and ignore it. I like that. Thank you, Gilman. You simplified something for me. I was making it too complicated. But yeah, that's a perfect start. The more that you can the more that you can cut off anger, the weaker it's going to get. So whatever you have to do to cut off that anger. Okay, guys, you guys have probably all heard about, the hermit spiritualist. Okay, this is the guy that goes off into the mountains by himself, or who lives a lot by himself, and then only returns into the world when he's ready. And I'm going to tell you why they do that. And it's almost like what you're talking about, ignoring the stimuli to weaken the emotion. Okay, they do it because they don't have that stimuli now. And it gives them an opportunity to cut off those emotions, cut off those thought patterns, or even cut off those personality aspects. Because they know that if they don't go into the emotion, it'll be weakened. And once the hermit practitioner, gets to the point to where he feels as if he has it mastered, he's going to re-enter the world, and he's going to practice and see if he can actually hold it while in the world. So that's why you'll see a lot of saints. You'll see holy men. Holy again meaning whole, not divine. Okay, we're all divine, as far as that goes. But holy meaning whole. They'll go off for periods into the wilderness, is what they like to call, or hermit practitioner. The reason is to cut off that energy. Is that making more sense? All right, guys, we're going into 45 minutes. So yeah, no, you are correct. Ignoring them is a perfect way to start. Perfect. I like that. Especially if you can't go into the wilderness for a while by yourself. All right, guys, I'm going to give it 1 minute. Speak it now, ask it now, or forever hold your peace. Besides that, I've got wine to drink. I downloaded a movie. I'm going to watch Robin Hood 2018. Yeah, hey, Jonathan. Yeah, I don't know about cognitive behavioral therapy, but I do know that I tend to like to follow the Buddhist training and the Buddhist thought. The reason is these are guys that have spent thousands of years, thousands of them, in different temples all over the place, and they all communicate. And that's all they did all day long was think about the nature of reality and the nature of the mind. They really got it down pretty good. And if they came up with something new, a new insight, or a new way of looking at it, they shared it amongst everybody. It was like a whole college of psychologists, is basically what it was. So you'll note that a lot of psychology, and especially New Age, they're really doing a lot of the principles that you find in Taoism and Buddhism. They're doing a lot of the principles because they already paved the way. It's just that they don't have it down pat. Psychologists nowadays are thinking of things externally rather than internally. Okay? That's their biggest problem. They think in terms of, okay, here, take this drug for this, take this drug for that, rather than learning how to master it and knowing that it comes up from the inside. So, they're still quite young. I mean, it's only, psychology is only, 100 or 200 years old. It's really not that old. I mean, they'll get there, just like the mystics of the past got there. Daniel Picard, thank you. You're welcome, Daniel. I appreciate it. I'll give him the same. I went through that a dozen times. Useless. Dan says, thanks, John. Good hearing you again. I'm glad you came, Don. Yeah, and feel free to, check out questions and all that. I mean, we should have probably more people put their 2 cents worth in on answering questions than me. I'm the only one answering. Remember, I mean, I'm viewing from, my perspective, and sometimes to answer somebody's question might help from somebody else's perspective. Gilman says, I end up rambling about drama in my life, but they never helped me to change things. They just listened to me talk. Well, I want you to keep in mind, when you're rambling about your drama, you're empowering it. Remember, anything you focus on, everything you focus on, you empower. Everything. Okay? If you focus on failing, you're empowering failing. But we're going to get to that, okay? You know, again, I just want you guys to focus on emotions first. Because it's the most physical, which makes it the most validating when you see that these techniques work. And then just like you saw that the techniques work for, stopping your internal dialogue, stopping your internal chatter. You saw that those work, which makes it now easier for you guys to take the next leap, which is to say, okay, these techniques will probably work for my emotions also. Once you discover that it works for that, and you start to be able to develop a command of yourself, self mastery, a command of your emotions, you'll then move into saying, okay, these other aspects that he's talking about, like personality aspects, those will probably work also, even though they're not as physical as like sensations and emotions. Am I making sense? Christopher asked, could a practice of daily moving through many emotions be worthwhile? It almost sounds schizophrenic. No, if I were you, one thing at a time, bro. Once you master, if you're going to use a talisman, once you master being able to go into that emotion whenever you want, including being in its opposite or negative aspect, yeah, then go to the next one. Now do them one at a time. You're asking too much for yourself. One thing at a time. OCB, bro. OCB. Sometimes OCD is good, man. Sometimes it's good. Gilman, it was nice to get my feelings out, but I could tell my feelings to someone else for free. I wanted therapy to help me change. Jonathan says, thank you. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. All right, guys. 10 seconds. Ask me one good question, if you have it. Oh, I think I got another message coming up. All right, guys. Ha! We'll get to that. Actually, when I was doing Vajrayana, that was one of the transmissions that I got. And I'll do it. I'll cover that. Okay? But that's way down the road. That's way, way, way down the road. Okay? When we start to get into subject object and the nature of consciousness, when we start talking a little bit more about dependent arising, how one thing is dependent on another. But I want to get these, foundation ones before we start getting, too esoteric. Well, yes and no. It does. He says Genesis chapter tells you the origin. Yes and no. Yeah, the Vajrayana thought is real close to it, real similar. It's just different terminology, and they go into a little bit more detail. All right, guys, we're going to call that a show. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate the questions. It's more fun for me to answer questions than it is for me to do videos, to do lessons, because then I just talk into the computer, and then I hit stop, and then I think, and then I talk in again. It's a lot more fun. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Talk to y'all later.